Have you ever met one of those people who just unstoppable?
Yeah, I have.
Me too.
What's their mystique?
Nothing stops these people.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. You're about to meet some of the most amazing people.
Stop. Don't stop.
They've accomplished their goals despite insurmountable odds. They beat adversity, physical hardship, and traumatic events, and emerged triumphantly. They're people just like you and me, and they're winners. Are you unstoppable? Here's Frankie to show you how.
Hello there, and welcome to Mission Unstoppable Radio. Today we're going on a mission with a man who is known as America's Perceptionist. You only have one time to make a first impression, and Dr. Arnette believes you better make a good one. He will tell you why in a moment, but first, let me introduce you to the man. In 2005, Dr. Arnette was the first American male to receive a PH.D. from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, Department of Cellular and Molecular Biology. His education continued with a postdoctoral fellowship in cardiology in the Department of Human Growth and Development, being trained by two Nobel Prize-winning physicians, Dr. Mike Brown and Dr. Joel Goldstein. Dr. Arnette led the genetics of longevity in African American studies, worked on the Dallas Heart Study, and has been cited in numerous medical journals. And today, he spends much of his time working with youth, trying to change their perceptions on what success looks like, and explaining the differences between an idealistic world and the real world. Today we're going to discuss his book, I Am Supposed to Be Here, The Art of Dealing with Perception. Please welcome Dr. Darn Arnette. Hello there.
Thank you.
Dr. Arnette,
thank you. How are you
today?
How are you doing today? I'm doing well.
I'm doing great. Thank you. Before we talk about why you wrote your book, let's talk a moment about who you are, where you grew up, where your family is. Where did you grow up?
I'm from, this is how they say it. I'm from the mighty, baby. I'm from New Orleans. So I was born in New Orleans, left there as a child and went to Dallas and grew up for the most part there in Dallas. But the majority of my family and everything is all based and rooted in the Crescent City down in New Orleans. So I had a chance to go to high school in Dallas, though, but spent a lot of time back in New Orleans with a lot of family.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that. And you are considered a middle child.
That's correct. So, middle child syndrome.
The middle child syndrome. You walk to a different drummer. I've got one of those. So is that an accurate reflection of you walking to a different drummer within the family dynamic, or are your siblings as successful as you are?
I'm actually an outlier. My younger brother, he and I have both, battled almost every day playing basketball. We both had aspirations to play professional basketball, and his career went a little bit further than mine. He actually played for several years in Europe and South America and all over the world, Asia. So he one-upped me on that, because I never got a chance to play professionally, just a little in college. So, but I would say I probably was a little bit more dedicated when it came to the academic side compared to me and my sister and my brother.
And your profession definitely has more longevity. For sure.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And mom and dad, what did they do?
Oh, my dad, he's a classic American dream story. I mean, this guy, he did not have a college degree. He started working for the federal government as a typist. And he worked his way all the way up to what they call the senior executive service, which is the highest level in government. The only thing higher is a political appointed position. And he was one of the assistants to the undersecretary of agriculture during the George Bush presidency. So he lived in Maryland for a while during the George Bush W presidency. So he's retired now, but he was a big government guy, worked in the United States Department of Agriculture. And my mom, she was a school teacher and then bounced around and had a bunch of other little jobs here and there. And ultimately, she started working for the federal government also and then retired also.
Wow. Good for you. And they're still together?
No, actually, I have a stepmom now who's really great. So my dad remarried, about 15 years ago. About 10, 15 years ago. So So everything is good. A nice family dynamic.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say that I did love your book. I'm supposed to be here, The Art of Dealing with Perception. It really is a wonderful book. And I love what you're doing, when you're talking to the kids and what you're talking about. So let's talk a little bit about a life-changing event that happened to you at university, because I think it had a very profound effect on the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, everyone is going to, what happened to me was, someone would consider it, take it one way. I look at it as just an adversity that I had to overcome. When you're walking across campus just trying to go to class and, on that particular day, just going to study, and a policeman engages you and basically confronts you and tells you, what are you doing here? And you tell him you're a student and they don't believe you. And he tells you, you don't look like you're supposed to be here. And you end up being detained for over an hour. In a very uncomfortable position on your knees in a courtyard surrounded by officers. It's a very traumatic experience, especially when you've done nothing wrong.
Right.
And it's kind of devastating and demoralizing to just have people just staring at you like, I wonder what he did. And the reality is you did nothing. So, yeah, that was a very, very unsettling situation I had to deal with.
I really felt for you. I did. I don't mean to laugh at that. I really did. I went from Canada to Louisville, Kentucky, the first year of desegregation. And I ended up in a high school where they were busing young African Americans in. And it was my first real time with racism. Really, it was the first time I'd ever really experienced it. Because in Canada, we didn't have that. It really wasn't anything that was prevalent.
And for me, I had experienced racism to a certain extent, but not overt. It was always more subtle, to where you go into a store and the clerk may spend a little bit of extra attention to you.
Watching what you're doing, where your hands are.
A policeman may pull you over just to check your ID to make sure you don't have any warrants or anything, and then let you go. But that was my first time that someone actually told me, you don't look like you're supposed to be here. And it wasn't because of the way I was dressed. So,
well, you said, I think at that time you were in jogging pants. You were about to go into the gymnasium?
Correct. The gymnasium was right next to, we have these things called carols where students can come in and study. So I could have just as easily been going into the gym as going to study, and it was a Sunday afternoon. So my apparel was not odd in any sort of imagination whatsoever. So it had to be one other reason, that the officer decided to stop me. So it was very interesting, traumatic, devastating, upsetting, unsettling. I could go on and on with adjectives,
sure.
But like I tell the kids, things are going to happen that you don't like, and you have to rebound and continue to move forward. You can't let your speed bumps turn into roadblocks.
That's true. But hindsight's 20/20, and when you're in the middle of it, it's kind of hard to see all of that. Because I felt, as an observer reading it, my chest got tight. I felt for, the imbalance and the unreasonableness of this officer. He was told that you were a student. You showed him a student card. There was nothing out of the ordinary, and yet he chose not to believe you, and which makes me think that he didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter to him. He was just going to harass you anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but
it is unfortunate.
That's probably a pretty accurate assessment.
And then it happened again.
Yeah,
but
the second
between
time
the time it happened again, you did something.
Yeah, in between, the incident 1 and incident 2, as my attorneys call them, I had filed a complaint, with the school, and the resolution that they gave me wasn't satisfactory to me. So I took the huge step of filing a lawsuit against the state of Texas for civil rights violations. And that obviously didn't go over well with the administration at UT Southwestern. And, we're chugging along, going to court, and 2 weeks before graduation, it happens again. And this time it was a little bit more egregious just because I was with a buddy of mine, and we both got stopped. And I showed the guy my ID, and then he asked for my driver's license. And I told him, I'm walking. Why do you need my driver's license? And then his response is, are you failing to identify yourself? And I was baffled because I'm like, you're holding my ID. What do you mean? And he calls for backup, and the next thing you know, I'm arrested.
The friend that you walked with, was Caucasian?
That's correct.
And so did he try to intervene at any time during this altercation or the conversation?
Well, he was there, and, to be honest, in his defense, there was really nothing he could do because he was just as befuddled as I was. Because he's like, you're holding his ID. What do you mean he's failing to identify? And then to add insult to injury, they never asked him for any of his identification. And he volunteered his identification. I'm like, we just got out of the same car. We were riding together. We're walking side by side, but I'm the only person you're interested in. I really didn't understand that. So he did tell another officer that arrived, do you not know who this guy is? And that was the first time someone said, do you know who this guy is? You don't know him outside of the basketball arena? And he's like, this is Don Arnette,
You haven't seen that famous face?
And he's like, that's Don Arnette. And then the officer says, you mean the civil rights lawsuit, Don Arnette? Because I have an ongoing case. Right. And this guy said, wow. And he actually got in his car and left.
Yeah, because he almost lost the state.
The supervisor shows up, and he asked for clarity and, said, what's going on? And the officer says he won't identify. And I'm like, you're holding my ID. And he acts like I was speaking a different language, and I got arrested. And at that point, I was upset, but I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal because I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'll just go ahead, go down here, get a little citation or whatever, and then go tell my lawyers, and everything will be everything. But, the story was just beginning at that point. So I had no idea
what it was. Beginning.
It was just beginning,
We're going to go to a break, and I want to talk about that when we come back from our break. You were married at the time, too. How many kids did you have?
At that time, I had 2.
2 kids. Okay. So picture this. Okay. He's being taken down to jail. He's got a wife at home. He's 2 weeks from graduation, and, all manner of things are going to happen. Stay tuned. Stay close. You aren't going to want to miss this. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Mission Unstoppable.
Don't stop.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Velasi's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Velasi is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the Safari at the Supper Club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine, and new cures. Join Velasi every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Arnette Hammond.
Do you need some new motivation to give your exercise some kick? You should consider training to run a marathon. Most people would agree, 26.2 miles is a long way to run. Yet that is what thousands of people do every year when they run a marathon. The runner's feet will slam into the hard road about 26,000 times each. Most participants do not run a marathon to win. Their reasons vary from challenging themselves to having a goal to just to prove that they can do it. There are 245 marathons in the United States each year. The average time for men to run a marathon is 4.5 hours, and for women, It's a little over 5 hours. You may be thinking about running marathons, and my suggestion is go for it. If you decide to participate in a marathon, you will train and exercise quite a bit, and I like that. I'm Annette Hammond.
And you're back. It's Mission Unstoppable Radio, and I'm your host, Frankie Picasso, and my guest today is Dr. Don Arnette, and he is the author of I Am Supposed to Be Here, The Art of Dealing with Perception. And when we left you just a moment ago at the break, and I know that you stuck around, Dr. Don was about to go back to jail for the second time, or get incarcerated for the first time, really. So tell us what happened. Tell us what that experience was like.
Well, I mean, I thought, growing up in New Orleans, I thought I was tough guy, and initially when I got arrested, I thought this was no big deal. I'm going to go over here to the UT Southwestern jail, and I'll get a citation. They'll send me on my way. But when I got there, they searched me. They took my driver's license, my wallet, and what have you, and they came back about 30, 45 minutes later, and the guy says to me, the officer says, were you aware that you had an outstanding seatbelt citation? And my response was, I don't have a seatbelt ticket. And then he says to me, well, we'll just go down to the county and let them figure it out. So then they put me in the car and they take me to the Dallas County Jail. And I'm thinking at this point, I'm still not panicking because I guess I'd watched too much television. I figured I'd go down here and call my lawyer and they'd get me right out. And, this may just be a little blip on the, my schedule for the day.
Sure.
Get down and I get processed and get put in jail. And I call my lawyers and happening, and they say, okay, this is great for your case. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not worried about the case right now, but I need to get out of here. So they tell me, okay, we'll get you out. So a whole day goes by, and I call him back, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? I'm still here.
Yeah.
And he says, we've got a problem. And I'm like, what's the problem? He said, we can't get you out. I'm like, what do you mean we can't get me out? He said, according to the computer, you aren't there. I'm like, I am here. What do you mean I'm not here? So at that point, a little bit of panic started to set in. Mm-hmm. So then another day goes by. Still no update. And the food that you were given for breakfast, you had like a cinnamon roll that was probably hard as a rock. For lunch, you had a bologna sandwich. And for dinner, you had a bologna sandwich. That was it. The first couple of days, I'm like, I'm not eating that stuff. And,
it's jail, 3, though, right? That's
it's jail. Oh, it was terrible. So,
oh my gosh.
So then they called my name, and a bunch of other people. I'm like, thank God, I'm finally getting out of here. But they took us to this big room, and they gave us these little bags and told us to put all our clothes in the bag and go take a shower. And I'm like, what's happening? So then, after we come out of the shower, they hand us a pair of a little jumpsuit, a pair of boxer shorts, and a pair of flip-flops. And the jumper says, property of Dallas County Jail. And then they took me to my cell because they were getting too overcrowded, so they had to put me in a cell. And that walk that I had to take down that hallway was just like it is on television, something I never wanted to experience, but people are banging on the windows and yelling and screaming, and then you go get put in your cell, and I had 2 Hispanic cellmates who actually had been sentenced and had been there, that were there for some time. And I was like, oh, my. And I would, the only thing I could think of was, don't cry. Just don't cry, because that might not be a good look. I mean, I'm a pretty decent-sized guy. I'm 6'4", but I was scared. I was scared to death. And
anybody be scared.
And a couple more days go by, and then I finally get ready to get out, and I'm walking out of jail. I get my paperwork, and I look on it, and I tell the guy behind me, who was probably a little bit more prison savvy than myself, and I said, hey, man, this isn't me. This isn't how you spell my last name, and I wasn't born in 1967. And he says to me, well, hey, man, I'd wait till I get outside of the jail before I start asking those questions. And I said, you know what, you got a point. So I get out, take the paperwork to my lawyers, and what ultimately happened was the officer had played with different variations of my last name until he found someone who actually did have a warrant. And when he found that person, that's when I got booked in as this other gentleman, not as myself. That's why I wasn't in the computer, because I didn't get booked in as me. So I got booked in
Was
as
he
somebody
African American,
else.
that guy?
No.
Yeah,
He was not.
Exactly.
That made it even more insane. He was a Caucasian guy, born in 60, and I'm like, man, or 64 or something like that. And I'm like, I wasn't born in the 60s, so, and I'm not a white male. But, hey, that's the system for you. So when I got out of jail, and it was like, no one knew when I was getting out, and it was kind of surreal.
Frantic.
Yeah, I mean, because I'd call her every day, and I'm like, I don't know when I'm coming home. I don't know. I have no idea. And when I did finally get out, it was about 11:30 at night, and you walk outside, and it's quiet, and it's dark, and you look around, and the only thing I could think to do was catch a cab back to the to UT Southwestern and get in my car and go home.
So were you able to sue the state, sue the police?
Well, yeah. So with the ongoing lawsuit that I had for the first incident, we had to go back to court, and the judge decided to lump those two wrongful arrests into one case instead of having them separate. So they consolidated them to a certain extent. So I had two incidences for one case, so there's like no need to have the same plaintiff and the same defendant on the same type of issue on two separate dockets.
Right.
So they combined them. So, so we had to go through that, and that was another, interesting deal to go through all the court stuff and what have you. And we ended up going through all that court stuff and going to mediation, and then ultimately, when we went through mediation, we came to a resolution to resolve the case, because the reality was I didn't want to settle the case, but I'd been doing this for almost 6 years, fighting them in court, and they told me, if I actually went to court and got a decision, the state would appeal, and then so on and so forth. They told me I'd probably have another 3 years left to do it. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to do this for another 3 years. So
that's how they get you. That's how they get you.
Yeah, so then I'm like, I didn't have it in me.
And I get that it wasn't about money. So was your arrest taken off the docks? Like, is all that gone?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Because technically I wasn't arrested.
It wasn't you.
It was somebody else.
Yeah.
So
I like to say that obstacles become opportunities. And so in a bizarre turn of events and way for you, with your book and with the youth work that you're doing, as you said, perception is everything. And even though people will look at you today and go, wow, there's a guy who drives a Mercedes and has monogrammed shirts, custom shirts made for him and whatever, you still have that experience of being in jail and are able to, tell the kids about that. You don't want to.
I mean, and it's funny because when I was giving a talk, I think it was for Edward Jones, I was doing their diversity summit, and this lady asked me if I could go back and change anything. Would I change anything? Mm-hmm. And I told her, you know what? No, because if I would have changed something, then that wouldn't have given me the opportunity to be in a position now to help young kids, to be an example, to be a trailblazer and so on and so forth. So if I would have changed something, then I would have taken away these opportunities that I'm having right now to help others. So, everything happens for a reason. And, that's why the book is I Am Supposed to Be Here. It was kind of I'm really proud of that title, because it was kind of weird. When we did it, they were like, you got to come up with a title for the book. And I'm like, I don't know. They're like, it's got to be short. It's got to be witty. It has to encompass the entire book in just a few words and what it's about. And then I just went back to the very beginning when the officer told me I didn't look like I was supposed to be there. Yeah. And I said, you know what, let's flip this around. I am supposed to be here, just like everyone else. They're supposed to be doing whatever their heart desires, as long as it's legal and moral for the most part. So that's basically how it all happened.
So your message, to the kids is it's great to be an athlete and it's great to be a hip hop artist, but it's not everything that you can be. There's a whole plethora of opportunities and jobs or whatever to do in between that, like yourself.
Yeah,
you're a doctor, you're a researcher, you work for a pharmaceutical company. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do.
Yeah, and I think it's a travesty that when I go in and talk to kids, usually I'll show up in a pair of jeans and a T-shirt, and I tell the people who invite me, do not tell the kids what I do for a living. And I tell them, I'll give you $20 if you can guess what my job is.
Mm-hmm.
And over 5 years, I've never given the $20 away. And I think that's sad that kids cannot look at someone who looks like them, who talks like them, who's essentially from the same type of neighborhood that they're from, and even in their wildest dreams, after you give them 10, 20 guesses, nothing with science or medicine even comes into their mind to guess that that's what you would do for a living. I'm always an athlete, and, you know, I appreciate the comments
you got
that,
the
hey, you look like a good
type
athlete.
for it, though, right?
Yeah, so, I mean,
the height
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But, you know, once we get through, no, I'm not an athlete. No, I did not play football. No, I did not play basketball. No, I'm not a policeman. No, I'm not a model. No, I'm not an entertainer. And are you a professional speaker? No, you know, I'm not a professional speaker. And they're just stumped. They have no clue. That never even comes out of their mouth. And I think the reason that is because they have not had an opportunity to see enough people who look like them and talk like them come back and spend some time with them to be a, you know, in a not trying to sound cliche, but to be a role model. So
that's true. But you know what? It is interesting. On TV, when you have successful, you know, in a TV sitcom or a drama series, the black male is usually a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
If he's not an athlete.
And that's all. That's TV. That's TV.
Yeah,
There's always
TV.
television.
Yeah,
you know, so
always on TV.
It's not real.
Yeah.
That's not real. That only happens on TV. You know, because most kids can identify. Because I like to keep myself pretty current. You know, with the kids and know their lingo and so on and so forth. So I mean, they can relate. You know, so and I think that's the biggest thing. You got to be able to relate, and once you can do that, that's half the battle. So I mean, I'm happy that I have the opportunity to do this kind of stuff with these kids, and so far so good. No complaints.
We're about to go to another commercial break. We're here with Dr. Don Arnette, and I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch more stuff, about what he does with the kids, what he talks about, just a whole whack of stuff. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We're coming right back.
Don't stop.
That's right, don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Arnette Hammond.
Most of the time, exercise rejuvenates you and increases your energy. But every once in a while, you may find that you're feeling tired in your workout, and every movement is an effort. My advice is simple. Turn up the music. Listening to fast-paced, uplifting music can really be helpful. According to the Journal of Sport and Exercise Psychology, your overall endurance improves by 15% when you exercise to music. So put on your preferred playlist or turn the radio up and treat yourself to a great workout while listening to your favorite music. The pulsating beat and uplifting lyrics can truly spur you on to complete your exercise and also to get an outstanding workout. Turn up the music and turn up the energy and motivation. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Arnette Hammond. Like us on Facebook.
It's words you never heard.
Did you hear about the Gaberlunzie bear caught rummaging through a refrigerator in an apartment in Colorado? The tenant heard noises coming from the kitchen and saw a bear with his head in the fridge, looking for anything it could eat. What's a word for food that's unfit for human consumption? Ma wallop. The tenant locked himself in his bedroom and called for help. What's a word for the fear of bears? Ursophobia. We have lots of bears near our Colorado cabin, and we have been told that pepper spray will keep them away. But the idea that it would keep a 500-pound grizzly bear from attacking seems ridiculous to me. I think I'll try the pepper spray on myself and hope the bear doesn't like spicy foods.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Okay, and we're back. We are back and listening to Mission Unstoppable Radio. Thank you for sticking around. We have a little bit of crazy noise happening, but I think it's going to level out and make itself. So thank you for staying and sticking around with us. We are back, and we're talking to Dr. Don Arnette, and we were talking about just before we went to break. We were talking about the kids that he works with, and the idea of perception. So do you talk about the kids? Do you talk to them about how to dress and how their look affects job opportunities or how they're perceived, at first blush?
Oh, yeah. I tell them all the time, you have to be careful of what uniform you're wearing. I give them an analogy about, hey, if something happened to your mother or your sister and there was a gentleman standing close by and he was dressed as a policeman and you ran over to him and said, hey, can you please help me? And I said, what would you do if the cop said, why are you telling me? And the kids say, well, I'd say, because you're a policeman. I said, what would you do if the policeman told you, well, just because I'm dressed like this doesn't mean I'm a policeman? And then, they begin to stop and think. I said, you have to be careful what uniform you're wearing, because sometimes people can judge you, not because they're bad or mean or what have you. It's just based on their personal experiences with individuals who have a set of characteristics that you also have. It's human nature. And I dial it back to like when I walked in this room, none of you guys gave me the credit that I deserve for being a doctor. Not because you didn't like me or you were mean. You just formed an opinion based on your personal experiences. And that's what other people do. So we have to be mindful of, now all the time it's not as genuine and a mistake like that. Some people do have some inherent biases. But if you really think about how these opinions are formed, and you just did it to me, so people are going to do it to you. So just be careful of your uniform. So that's one of my big messages to these kids. So, it's they have to be mindful of perception and how it affects their day-to-day and how they're perceived and, the opportunities that they can sacrifice or the opportunities they could potentially capitalize on just by their sheer appearance. So not to say that that's right. I mean, we should be able to live however you want, dress however you want, and so on and so forth. But the reality is we live in a realistic world, not an idealistic world. Yeah. Exactly. It's human nature. It's human nature.
You have a reputation for being very fly. So where did that sense of style come from?
Oh, man. I think my mom tells me all the time, it started when I was little. Ever since I was young, I always wanted to wear, back when I was young, it was Jordache and Jabot jeans and polo shirts and, like when I came for Christmas, I wouldn't want toys, I'd want clothes. Okay. And so I'd get like one pair of jeans or something like that, and I would like cherish those things. So, and then my whole life, I was like, I want to make sure when I grow up, I can buy whatever kind of clothes I want and, make sure I can drive whatever kind of car I want. Because, when you're little and you're riding around in a Ford LT, an Oldsmobile, and, when I was in college, my first car was a Datsun B210. I spent like $600 for it. So it keeps you humble. So, I mean, that's kind of where it came from, and it just kind of drives you. But the one thing that disappoints me or frustrates me more than anything else is when I interact with kids and even adults, and they say to me, man, you're lucky, you're a doctor. And I'm like, don't say that. That's not luck. I didn't just wake up and snap my fingers and this career was just thrust upon me. I had to put in the work. I wasn't always dressing like this or driving these cars. You didn't see me. You didn't see my journey, when I was driving a freaking Datsun 210 and a Fiero and a Chevrolet Cavalier. And, I mean, you didn't see me then. You see me now.
It is a lot of hard work. It is a lot of hard work. And not everybody has affinity for sciences, for, math and science or whatever. But we all can, some people, it's very easy for them, and other people have to work a little bit harder. But it's all doable. No matter who you are, it's all doable if you want. That's why it's called Mission Unstoppable. You have to keep going.
Exactly.
And, last year I was really, really, I'll tell you a little story because AJ it was a pastor, and I met AJ and Devon, who was also a lawyer. They are from Hartford, Connecticut. And last summer on August the 25th, they gathered 100 of the best and the brightest, quote-unquote, brothers together and asked them to dress for work and meet the kids at the Martin Luther Elementary School on the first day of school. There were lawyers and judges and dentists and doctors all waiting, and CEOs all waiting to give these kids high fives as they got off the bus. And like yourself, it was to represent that, you know what, you go to school and you don't just have to be, stay in the hood or whatever. You get to be whatever it is that you want to be. I thought it was brilliant. I love that whole idea. And I think they're going to do it every year.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do for these kids. I mean, if you wonder why kids only want to be athletes and entertainers, it's because, unfortunately, for a certain demographic of kids, that's the only successful minority type of career that they can associate with. That's what they see on TV all the time.
Right.
They see, if you ask a kid, you want to be a professional football player, like who? And they can rattle off 10 different athletes, or basketball, or if you want to be a rapper or whatever it may be. But if you ask them if you're going to be a doctor, like who? You get crickets. A lawyer, like who? An engineer, like who? They don't know anybody like that. So you can't emulate something you've never seen. Exactly.
It's hard to dream about something that you don't know. And what you don't know what you don't know until somebody tells you what you don't know. And so it is really important. Have you seen the new show Little Big Shots? Have you seen that show with Steve Harvey? And I noticed that you were on a program with Steve Harvey not that long ago. I saw it on your Facebook page. And I was sitting watching the show, and I said to my husband, Steve is funny and he's a great guy and he seems like a great guy, but he has a really amazing opportunity to be a role model for people. And yet I believe he chose his language carefully, to not use proper English grammar, to speak a little bit, urban. And I wondered why he did that. I mean, is it so he doesn't alienate the people from where he came? Or, I do believe that he can speak properly. You might know better than me. What do you think? Are you still with me, Dr. Don?
No, yes, I'm here. I find myself doing this. I find myself doing the same thing. When I am depending on your environment, everyone knows the saying, the old adage, when in Rome, do as Romans do.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I will actually show the kids videos of me doing news interviews and stuff like that. And then I'll stand there in front of them and talk to them. I'm like, what's the difference? And they'll say, well, the way you're dressed or the way you're talking or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because in that environment, that's the way I need to present myself. Mm-hmm. If I came here and I spoke exactly like that to you guys right now, you probably wouldn't give me that much of attention, because you would say, I'm not one of you. You wouldn't associate me as being like you. So the way I can connect with you is to talk like you. And so then you're more comfortable. So I think that is a tool that good people use so they can know how to connect with people. So that's because I remember my first interview that I did back when I was at UT Southwestern, and they asked me after I was going to court and stuff, they're like, well, what is it different about you? I said, well, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Dr. Al Gilman. He won the Nobel Prize in 1994, and I held my own. We went back and forth talking about G proteins and all this other kind of stuff in the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And when I left school, I went to South Dallas, which is one of the poorest parts of Dallas, and hung out with a buddy of mine and sat on his front porch and was drinking a beer. Mm-hmm. And this guy didn't even graduate from high school. And I am just as comfortable hanging out with my buddy who didn't graduate from high school as I am with the guy who won the Nobel Prize.
And I think that's
the key, to be comfortable in all settings and be able to relate.
And we model good behavior though. And so people go, well, he's a TV star and he do that. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want them to emulate that, or do you want them, to stay where they are? And, I know that a lot of, my kids who are now in 20s, 30s, they hang with their friends and it's F this and F that or whatever. And I go,
mm-hmm.
That can slip out very easily. You have to watch it, because you're not going to talk like that when you go back to work or when you're talking to somebody else, right? And you have to know the difference. And you know the difference. The difference.
And that's why I show them the video, to say, look, this is how you act in this setting. And so and that's what we have to teach them. We have to teach them.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of stuff that they don't know. So, we do what we can. Like we were talking earlier when we were on break about, what I do for the kids for my little scholarship program deal.
I want to bring that up. Exactly. Yeah.
What I work with these kids.
Let's not just throw that away. Hang on a second.
Okay.
This is a big deal.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Don Arnette just announced his new scholarship program. So tell us all about it, please.
Yeah, it's called the Doc Arnette Investment Challenge, and it's part of one of the programs I have under the Doc Arnette Foundation. And what we do is we go into schools, and I've partnered with some individuals from Edward Jones Financial, and they come and give the kids a crash course in the stock market.
Awesome.
And the kids are broken up into groups of 3 and 4, and they're given a pretend $100,000, and they have to invest this money throughout the semester as part of their economics class, and they also get a grade for it. Mm-hmm. So I have to work with the school districts and the dean of instructions and what have you, so this can actually be part of their grade, which actually contributes to them graduating. Now, it's an easy grade. All you have to do is basically participate in it, and then you'll be fine. But we do that, and it is so eye-opening because this is a skill set that these kids don't normally have. When I first talk to these kids, they have no idea what a stock is. They have no idea what interest rates on credit cards are because at this point of their life, they're accustomed to only using debit cards. And unfortunately, their parents are using debit cards, so they don't know the value of an interest rate. They think the best way to save their money is just put it in the bank and earn 0.1% interest. They have no clue. And yesterday I was able to go to one of the schools and announce the award winners, the scholarship winners. And the guys, this group of kids, in 4 months, they had a 23% return on their money. Wow. So they get like 1 day every other week to work on their stocks, to research stocks and see what they want to get into. And I'm talking to this kid, and I'm like, how did you guys do it? He said, well, after our research, we decided that we wanted to go into companies that were looking at alternative energy sources and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did you even know what alternative energy sources were and the companies associated with them? He's like, I didn't know what stock was before I started doing this. And now they have a skill set that they will be able to take with them forever as far as how to invest money, how to manage money. And it's not about promoting a career in finance. Right. It's just to promote financial literacy. I mean, if these kids get a regular job, I got to stop you because we're going to go to a break in a minute.
But it's fantastic. Okay. I mean, what they have accomplished in a short time, and yourself, a miracle. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Mission Unstoppable.
Okay.
Don't stop.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Close your eyes and imagine living your life without limits. Where would you go? Who would you meet? What would you do? During an Uncover Your Hidden Genius session, you will discover what's keeping you from living your life with purpose, passion, and fulfillment of your potential. You'll get a clear vision of the steps you need to take to uncover your hidden genius so that you can live a life without limits. Sessions can be done over the phone, Skype, or in person. Find out more at www.joycebufordempowers.com or by calling 903-287-0747.
Star Wars movie The Force Awakens has eclipsed the annual gross domestic product of 10 countries. Officially the highest grossing movie of all time. Did you know that Ewoks speak a combination of Tibetan and Nepalese? Harrison Ford, the rocket jock, complained that when flying the Millennium Falcon, the cockpit switches wouldn't stay in place when he flipped them. So the set designers for The Force Awakens made sure there were new cockpit switches for Han Solo's iconic ship. I thought it was interesting that the lightsaber noise was created from the familiar hum of an old television. Do you think you can tell a lot about somebody based on what color lightsaber they have? Why did the angry Jedi cross the road? To get to the dark side? Maybe?
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back with Mission Unstoppable Radio. I am your host, Frankie Picasso. Thank you for sticking around. We are talking to Dr. Donald Arnette, and we were talking about his new scholarship program. And the scholarship program is amazing. And he is, we talked about this young man who just, prior to engaging in this economic show, he didn't even know what a stock was. And now he was looking at alternative energy sources, and their stocks had gone up 23%, which is amazing. So 4 scholarships are given out. They're $2,500 apiece. And Dr. Arnette is being inundated now with other schools wishing and hoping that he can come and bring his program to their school. He's funding this out of pocket himself. So if you're interested, if you've got some money, if you are into social impact, as I am, why don't you give us a call and, or reach out? Where can they reach you?
They can reach me, docarnette.com, DOCARNETTE. You can email me there and so on and so forth. And I'd love to hear from anyone who's interested in helping and, trying to move this thing forward, because financial literacy is something that's very important to me, because I believe in it. Because if you think about what the naysayers are saying when you talk about a political perspective, that Social Security could potentially be solvent in 30 years and this, that, and the other, that would mean that these kids whose parents, some of them, have become dependent on Social Security and their grandparents, and that's how they live their life once they get into retirement. That's a nice piece of the pie moving forward. It's a possibility that might not be there. So we try to inform them about how you actually can start saving money now. There's never not enough money. There's not an amount of money that is too small. So even as college kids and stuff, in high school kids, we do the math and we show them, if you only save $10 a week over 10 years, we show them what that would be with just a modest 7 or 8% return. And they are baffled by just $10. It's like, yeah, just $10. $10 can turn into $100 a year, which can turn into thousands of dollars over time. And with the rule of 72,
it's going to work.
And they're young enough. Yeah. Exactly. And so the best thing about the program yesterday, and what I was hoping the kids would say, was when I left, they were all saying, man, I wish this was real money. I wish this was my own real money, because I would have made so much money. And I'm like, that's the mindset that I want you guys to have. But then you also temper it with, a 23% return is not normal. You guys did outstanding, and you have to kind of dial it back to
better than putting your
what
money
normal
in the bank.
Returns. Exactly, where you're not going to get any return. And so I really have to thank my friends at Edward Jones, a couple of people that I know who work for them, and, they volunteer in their free time, they're licensed financial advisors, to come over and work with the kids or what have you. So that I couldn't do it without them, because they're the ones that are giving the real financial expertise and advice to these kids, and I'm just trying to facilitate the relationships.
I don't know if I worked for the government here for many years, and one of the programs I initiated, part of the program was in our high schools, the kids have to have 40 hours of community service. And I wanted for people to volunteer who had unique and interesting jobs to come into the schools and take a kid and intern them, or, work with them, job shadow them, and let them know about all these different careers that they didn't have any idea of. And I think that would be brilliant, for you or anybody else to take on. And at least, like you said, show them that there's engineers, there's more than just being a firefighter or a police officer, or, a crackhead or whatever.
Oh, yeah. There's
so much in between.
There's so many different ways to make a living, and there's so many ways to make a comfortable living. We don't have to get thrown into the proverbial, doctor, lawyer, engineer. If those are the only people that were making money, then there would hardly be anyone who was making money, if you think about it. So there's so many. I know a guy who used to be a freaking
blue collar. You work for the union or whatever, man. They're making over $100,000 a year. That's good money.
Yeah. And I know guys this one friend of mine who was a plumber, and he started off, and the next thing you know, he hired 2 guys, and then he hired 3 guys, and now he's got like 50 people working for him, and he's getting big contracts and stuff. Another one of my friends used to play basketball, and he didn't play as long as he wanted. He started a home health service, so he went out and started hiring nurses and contract nurses out to home health care agencies or what have you. So there are a million different ways to make some money. But if the kids are not aware of these opportunities, they can't pursue it. So I love to tell them, you got to see it to be it. So now that you have a chance to see it, now I can aspire to be it. So that's our tagline, and we have a social duty to put as many different careers on display for these kids as possible, because everyone's not going to be a doctor. Somebody's going to be, want to have to pick up a trade or something. Some people may want to do other things, in political or broadcasting or whatever. But we got to let them see the opportunity and the possibilities.
So with this art of perception, let me ask you something. Has it ever reversed on you looking so good, dressing such a way? Do people ever feel that you're not going to understand them, or that you're above them, or that you're apart from them? Has that ever happened to you? The reverse racism, I guess, as opposed to
no,
clothing.
because the demographic that I'm concerned about forming that opinion, the kids, the first time they meet me, they never meet me wearing a suit. They never meet me wearing dressed up like this.
In the workforce for yourself.
Well, in the workforce, it's it gets to the point where some people are like, oh, you must spend all your money on clothes and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, man, don't worry about me and my clothes. I mean, you spend your money on what you want to spend. I spend it on me. But I really haven't had any negative, really too much associated with me, other than, some people say that I would potentially, one time when I first started one of my first jobs, this lady was like, hey, you got to stop bragging about how much your clothes cost. I'm like, what are you talking about? And what had happened was a lady asked me how much did my shirt cost, because she wanted to get one for her husband.
Oh, okay.
And I told her, and then that snowballed into me parading around telling people that I wear expensive shirts. And I'm like, no, that's not how it happens. So,
it's everything is a choice in life. It's all a choice. And, people have accused me of certain things. And I said, but it's a choice. Where I spend my money, I don't drink. So if I don't spend the weekend drinking alcohol, which could potentially be a $200 bill at a restaurant and here and there and everywhere, nice bottle of wine, then that money can go somewhere else. So it's all a choice.
Exactly. Right? It's all personal preference. It's all personal preference.
So, exactly.
So don't judge not lest ye be judged.
Yes. Tell me about your kids.
My kids are awesome. My oldest son is at the University of Texas, San Antonio. He's a freshman. He's majoring in biology, minoring in chemistry, and he wants to play basketball at college like his daddy did. And so he's having a little bit tougher road than I did, but it's not because of his talent. It's just the world of high school basketball has changed. When I was in high school, there was no such thing as AAU and playing in a tournament every single weekend and stuff like that. So the landscape has changed tremendously. And if you're not freaking 6'8", it makes it a little bit tougher for you. But I'm proud of him because he's continuing to push through. And his younger brother is a sophomore, and he's playing basketball also. And he says he wants to grow up to be a doctor, and that's pretty good. And they're both making phenomenal grades. But my daughter, who is the youngest, she really keeps them both in check and constantly reminds them that she's the smartest child that I have. She's constantly asking them, what did you make on your STAR test? That's like the standardized test that they give in the state of Texas. Right. And she's like, I scored perfect on mine. Daddy, what did Dylan get? What did Dalen get? And I'm like, baby, I don't remember. And she's like, how many SOAR awards did you get? So she's like, you didn't get as many as me. So even in the fourth grade now, she's extremely competitive from an academic perspective, and sometimes to a fault. I picked her up from school one day, and I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I missed a question on the test. I'm like, it's okay. She said, no, it's not my fault. The teacher never taught that to me. And I'm like, okay, well, look, we'll talk to the teacher, okay? So just relax. It's okay if you missed a question. So, but I think that drive will serve her well, as she gets a little bit older.
After? So, Mom or Dad?
I would have to say they all take after me. Yeah. But no, they take after both of us because my wife, she actually has a degree in finance. So she's pretty smart in her own right. So yeah, it's a nice mix of genes. They got some good DNA.
Right. Good for them. And what does your daughter, the boys, like to do? Basketball? Was your daughter like dance, or what is she into?
Tennis.
Really?
That is her thing. Tennis and fishing. tennis, fishing, and they all love to ski. So, we ski every spring break. So they all love to ski, but she loves to fish and tennis. Those are her two. And freaking Minecraft. I'm like, I wish I would have created Minecraft. I mean, that game, to me, it serves no purpose, but she loves that thing. So Minecraft dominates a lot of her free time also. That's
amazing. Talking about video games, I'm just... This is so off the wall, but I'm actually helping a girl go get her PH.D. and it's actually in gaming, in gamification, and those kinds of games. So it's kind of neat.
Oh wow! That is kind of cool.
And the research that you can do with it. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah. Well,
that's another career opportunity.
It's a career opportunity. Yeah, and it's pretty cool.
Yes,
and they're using it for everything now. I had a young man on who is into addiction and helping people, addicts, overcome, and they're using the gamification to do that because of the instant gratification that you can have. Right, give you prizes for not, shooting up or whatever, which is kind of cool.
Very insightful. Very insightful.
Dr. Arnette, we are coming to the end of our show. We have another 2 minutes left. What message do you want to give out? What haven't you said yet?
Well, I mean, my message to everybody is never let historical perceptions of careers or situations define your future interaction or aspirations, because you can be and do anything you want to do, and you cannot let speed bumps turn into roadblocks. The problem we have today is a lot of people start things, and if it doesn't go the exact way they want, or if they don't like the process, or if they don't like the people or whatever, they quit. And when you quit, especially at a young age, it can form a habit that when you become older and have a family can come back to haunt you. So you never want to pick up that bad habit of quitting anything. So make sure you really think about things before you try to do it. Make sure you're passionate about it, and start it, and don't let them stop you from reaching your goals. You got to see it to be it, and you are supposed to be here.
I like that. And remember, your past is not your potential.
Exactly.
It's unlimited. Unlimited. Yeah. So
without a doubt.
Your website is docrnet.com is your website, and Twitter is the same. Everything is the same, really.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with Dr. Arnette, go there.
Yeah. Instagram,
thank you so much
Facebook,
for being
everything.
My guest. You're so wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And your book, where can we get your book really quick?
iTunes, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. The hard copies have to come through my website, docarnette.com. Okay. And don't forget DLC. Okay.
Make sure you get it. I am supposed to be here. The Art of Dealing with Perception. Take care. See you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.
When the chips were down, they didn't stop. Stories of people who, when the odds were against them, turned defeat into victory. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. See you next time, and always remember...
Don't stop.